Henry V is a history play by William Shakespeare, believed to have been written in around 1599. It tells the story of King Henry V of England, focusing on events immediately before and after the Battle of Agincourt during the 100 Years' War. In the First Quarto text, it was entitled The Chronicle History of Henry V, which became the life of Henry V in the First Folio text. The play is the final part of a tetralogy, preceded by Richard II, Henry IV, Part 1, and Henry IV, Part 2. The original audiences would thus have already been familiar with the title character, who was depicted in the Henry IV plays as a wild, undisciplined lad known as Prince Harry, and by Falstaff as Hal. In Henry V, the young prince has become a mature man and embarks on a successful conquest of France. Characters. Synopsis. Elizabethan stages did not use scenery, acknowledging the difficulty of conveying great battles and shifts of location on a bare stage. The chorus, a single actor, calls for a use of fire, so that the actor playing King Henry can hold the vast fields of France, and encourages the audience to use their imaginary forces, imaginations, to overcome the stage's limitations. Piece out our imperfections with your thoughts. Quote, the early scenes deal with the embarkation of Henry's fleet for France, and include the real-life incident in which the Earl of Cambridge and two others plotted to assassinate Henry at Southampton. Henry's clever uncovering of the plot and his ruthless treatment of the plotters show that he has changed from the earlier plays in which he appeared. When the chorus reappears, he describes the country's dedication to the war effort. They sell the pasture now to buy the horse. The chorus tells the audience, we'll not offend one's stomach with our play, a humorous reference to the fact that the scene of the play crosses the English Channel. The chorus appears again, seeking support for the English Navy. Grapple your minds to sternage of this navy, he says, and notes that the ambassador from the French comes back, tells Harry that the king doth offer him Catherine his daughter. Quote, at the siege of Harfleur, Henry utters one of Shakespeare's best-known speeches, beginning, once more unto the breach, dear friends. Quote, before the Battle of Agincourt, victory looks uncertain, and the young king's heroic character emerges in his decision to wander around the English camp at night, in disguise, so as to comfort his soldiers and determine what they really think of him. He agonizes about the moral burden of being king, noting that a king is only a man. Before the battle, Henry rallies his troops with the famous St. Crispin's Day speech, Act 4 Scene 18-67, referring to, we few, we happy few, we band of brothers. Catherine learns English from her gentlewoman Alice in an 1888 lithograph by Laura Alma-Tadema. Act 3, Scene IV. Following the victory at Agincourt, Henry attempts to woo the French princess, Catherine of Valois. This is difficult because neither speaks the other's language well, but the humor of their mistakes actually helps achieve his aim. The action ends with the French king adopting Henry as his heir to the French throne and the prayer of the French queen, that English may as French, French Englishmen, receive each other. God speak this Amen. Quote, before the play concludes, however, the chorus reappears and ruefully notes, of Henry's own heirs, state, so many had the managing, that they lost France, and made his England bleed, which oft our stage hath shown. A reminder of the tumultuous reign of Henry VI of England, which Shakespeare had previously brought to the stage in a trilogy of plays, Henry VI Part 1, Henry VI Part 2, and Henry VI Part 3. As with all of Shakespeare's serious plays, also a number of minor comic characters appear whose activities contrast with and sometimes comment on the main plot. In this case, they are mostly common soldiers in Henry's army, and they include Pistol, Nym, and Bardolph from the Henry IV plays. The army also includes a Scot, an Irishman, and an Englishman, and Llewellyn, a comically stereotyped Welsh soldier, whose name is an attempt at a phonetic rendition of Llewellyn. The play also deals briefly with the death of Falstaff, Henry's estranged friend from the Henry IV plays, whom Henry had rejected at the end of Henry IV. Part 2. Date and text. On the basis of an apparent allusion to Essex's mission to quell Tyrone's rebellion, the play is thought to date from early 1599. p. 5. The Chronicle History of Henry V was entered into the Register of the Stationers' Company on the 14th of August 1600 by the bookseller Thomas Pavier. The First Quarto was published before the end of the year, though by Thomas Millington and John Busby rather than Pavier. Thomas Creed did the printing. Q1 of Henry V is a bad quarto, a shortened version of the play that might be an infringing copy or reported text. A second quarto, a reprint of Q1, was published in 1602 by Pavier. Another reprint was issued as Q3 in 1619, with a false date of 1608, part of William Jaggard's First Folio. The superior text first was printed in the First Folio in 1623. Criticism and analysis. Views on warfare. Readers and audiences have interpreted the play's attitude to warfare in several different ways. On the one hand, it seems to celebrate Henry's invasion of France and valorizes military might. Alternatively, it can be read as an anti-war portrayal. However, the play likely will remain beyond the dichotomy of pro and anti-war, as it presents a fuller picture of the subject than either of these perspectives quite allows. Shakespeare makes apparent the misery and corruption of war alongside the glory and high emotion, which makes it such a complex theme for art. Some critics connect the glorification of nationalistic pride and conquest with contemporary English military ventures in Spain and Ireland. The chorus directly refers to the looked-for military triumphs of Robert Devereux, 2nd Earl of Essex. In the fifth act, Henry V himself is sometimes seen as an ambivalent representation of the stage Machiavel, combining apparent sincerity with a willingness to use deceit and force to attain his ends. Other commentators see the play as looking critically at the reason for Henry's violent cause. The American critic Norman Rebkin described the play as a picture with two simultaneous meanings. Rebkin argues that the play never settles on one viewpoint towards warfare, Henry himself switching his style of speech constantly, talking of rape and pillage during Harfleur, but of patriotic glory in his St. Crispin's Day speech. The play's ambiguity has led to diverse interpretations in performance. Laurence Olivier's 1944 film, made during the Second World War, emphasizes the patriotic side, ignoring the fact that the enemy of the play, the French, were in fact allies in that conflict. While Kenneth Branagh's 1989 film stresses the horrors of war, a 2003 Royal National Theatre production featured Henry as a modern war general, ridiculing the Iraq invasion. A mock trial of Henry V for the crimes associated with the legality of the invasion and the slaughter of prisoners was held in Washington, D.C. in March 2010. Drawing from both historical record and Shakespeare's play, titled The Supreme Court of the Amalgamated Kingdom of England and France, participating judges were Justices Samuel Alito and Ruth Bader Ginsburg. The outcome was originally to be determined by an audience vote, but due to a draw, it came down to a judge's decision. The court was divided on Henry's justification for war, but unanimously found him guilty on the killing of the prisoners after applying the evolving standards of the maturing society. Previously, the fictional Global War Crimes Tribunal ruled that Henry's war was legal. No non-combatant was killed unlawfully. and Henry bore no criminal responsibility for the death of the POWs, the fictional French Civil Liberties Union, who had instigated the tribunal, then attempted to sue in civil court. The judge concluded that he was bound by the GWCT's conclusions of law and also ruled in favor of the English. The Court of Appeals affirmed without opinion, thus leaving the matter for the Supreme Court's determination. Performance history. A tradition, impossible to verify, holds that Henry V was the first play performed at the New Globe Theatre in the spring of 1599. The Globe would have been the Quidino mentioned in the prologue, but Shapiro argues that the Chamberlain's men were still at the curtain when the work was first performed, and that Shakespeare himself probably acted the chorus. In 1600, the first printed text states that the play had been played sundry times. The earliest performance, for which an exact date is known, however, occurred on the 7th of January 1605. At court, Samuel Pepys saw Henry V in 1664, but it was written by Roger Boyle, 1st Earl of Orrery, not by Shakespeare. Shakespeare's play returned to the stage in 1723, in an adaptation by Aaron Hill. The longest-running production of the play in Broadway history was the staging starring Richard Mansfield in 1900, which ran for 54 performances. Other notable stage performances of Henry V include Charles Keene, Charles Alexander Calvert, and Walter Hampden. 1972 Aldwych Theatre. Timothy Dalton as Henry. Prospect Theatre Company. Also in 1974 in Roundhouse Theatre. In the Shakespeare's Globes 2012 Globe to Globe Festival, Henry V was the UK entry, one of 37 and the only one performed in spoken English. Jamie Parker performed the role of Henry. Adaptations. Film. 3 major film adaptations have been made. The first, directed by and starring Laurence Olivier in 1944, is a colorful and highly stylized version which begins in the Globe Theatre and then gradually shifts to a realistic evocation of the Battle of Agincourt. The second major film, directed by and starring Kenneth Branagh in 1989, attempts to give a more realistic evocation of the period and lays more emphasis on the horrors of war. It features a mud-spattered and gruesome Battle of Agincourt, where Olivier staged the comic scenes as comedy. Branagh played them as serious drama. The third major film, starring Tom Hiddleston, was made by the BBC in 2012 as part of the Hollow Crown series. Dance. In 2004, postmodern choreographer David Gordon created a dance theatre version of the play called Dancing Henry V, which mixed William Walton's music written for the Olivier film, recorded speeches from the film itself and by Christopher Plummer, and commentary written by Gordon. The piece premiered at Dance Space Project in New York, where it was compared favorably to a production of Henry IV, Parts 1 and 2, at Lincoln Center. Music. Suite from Henry V is a 1963 orchestral arrangement of music that composer William Walton wrote for the 1944 Olivier film. The arrangement is by Muir Matheson, and is in 5 movements. Henry V, a Shakespeare scenario, is a 50-minute work for narrator, SATB chorus, boys choir, optional, and full orchestra. O for a Muse of Fire is a symphonic overture for full orchestra and vocal soloist, written by Darryl Cubian. The work is 12 minutes long, and was premiered by the New Jersey Symphony Orchestra in March 2015. The work is scored for full orchestra, with vocal soloist. The vocal part incorporates selected lines from the text, and the vocal range is adaptable to different voice types. The soloist for the premiere performances with the New Jersey Symphony was former October Project lead singer, and former Sony classical artist, Mary Fall. Modern literary criticism. Recent criticism of the play has been offered in Rabbits, Ducks and Henry V by Norman Rabkin, Ireland and Islam, Henry V and the War on Terror by David Coleman, and Wars of Memory and Henry V by Jonathan Baldo.